My name is Scott Manning. I'm a 2003 graduate of Ravenscroft. I'm also the chair of the Alumni Week for the Alumni Council. We have a great group of panelists lined up for you this week, and I hope you will take advantage of the insights they will share in their individual career paths. Our keynote speaker this morning is Fanny Slater, someone I've had the pleasure of knowing as a close friend since kindergarten, and someone I've enjoyed watching transform into the success she is today. Fanny was a lifer at Ravenscroft starting in preschool. She graduated from Ravenscroft in 2003 and attended Peace College. In 2011, she left Raleigh for the very first time and moved across the country by herself to Hollywood to chase a lifelong dream of becoming an actress. For those of us that know Fanny, her decision to move across the country was huge. This was the same person who had to get picked up from the junior mountain trip because being away from home for a night was just too much. While living in LA, every bit of hunger Fanny ever held for cooking, eating, and writing fermented inside of her until she couldn't take it anymore. She had spent the past 25 years daydreaming about a life under the Hollywood sign, and it was that very place where she realized the only part she ever needed to play was herself. A year and a half later, she followed her stomach back to the East Coast and chose to settle in Wilmington, North Carolina, where she took a professional path and paid the bills, but allowed her some freedom to flex her food muscles on the side. I still believe Fanny moved back to North Carolina because California lacked Bojangles, Boondinis, and Las Margaritas, three of Fanny's favorite places to dine. And I'm sure everyone in this room has eaten at one, if not all three, and you wouldn't necessarily consider them foodie havens. But it's Fanny's love of the everyday which makes her approachable and relatable to her friends and followers. One day Fanny realized that she really needed to follow her food-filled dream and said goodbye to a life of fruitless jobs and announced that she wouldn't spend another minute in an unfulfilling occupation. So she became a food writer and CEO, Chief Eating Officer of Fanfare Catering. I don't want to give away too much more about Fanny, but I will close by saying this. Fanny's success is a direct result of her unrelenting pursuit of her passion, and those that are just now discovering her, whether that's Rachel Ray or Emerald Lagasse, are definitely late to the party. Fellow Ravens, I give you Fanny Slater.
watch you turn my gaze and go before you know. If I were a mermaid, would you swim me? Yeah, oh.
Got a PowerPoint we're going to throw up here for a couple more pictures. Awesome. And I'd like to say a big thank you to my friend Scott, or Scooter, as I called him growing up, especially for reminding me of that junior mountain trip. Man, that was a great day. So, many of you don't know, I won the Rachel Ray Great American Cookbook Competition, and that's what a lot of people want to hear about, and that's what I'm here to talk about today, but there's a big part of the story before it, so that's kind of what I'm here to share with you guys today. So, yes, my name is Fanny, haha, very funny. I was named after my great-grandma Fanny. She had this expression she used to say, and it went like this: if you ever put on anything backwards, like your pants, do not change, or you'll be surprised. Now, I have no idea what she meant by that, but I think it had something to do with life. And now I will say, though, that the few words of that expression that always stuck with me were "do not change." And that's actually what our story is about today. It's about learning to be yourself. So here's me. Now, our story actually starts a little bit further forward from this picture. So, what Scott said about California is actually not entirely true. It wasn't the first time that I ever really left home. When I was 19, I hopped on a plane to California in the middle of the night. I bought a one-way ticket. Didn't tell my parents. Sorry, Dad. He's in the back. So, I had nothing on me. I had no luggage. I had no money. I had no plan. I had nothing on me but the clothes I happened to be wearing that day, the purse around my arm, and the shoes on my feet. So this sounds like a pretty wild story, and it is, but this is also a story about 3 circles. So my dad used to say to me when I was little, "Fanny, what are your 3 circles?" And when I was little, I was like, bologna and pizza, and I didn't get it. Took me a long time to get it. So he has this concept, and it's all about 3 circles, and it means that each one of you out there, you all have 3 circles. And it's the 3 things in life that you're good at, that you excel at, that you're passionate about, and that you love to do. And I have found that the intersection of those 3 circles, if you can wake up every day and you can live in that intersection, you'll be happy every day of your life. And I believe that that intersection is where all of us find our sole purpose. Now, this passion for cooking would not be realized until much later in life, trust me. But food truly made up the moments of my childhood. And it makes sense, because I actually come from a famous food legacy. So these are my parents. So, I'm just going to put this out there. My mom has magical chocolate superpowers. And she created the most decadent, most rich, most delicious brownie in the whole world. And when she combined those skills with my dad's magical marketing powers, the company Rachel's Brownies became an absolute national sensation. And what's funny is how I remember the brownies are, I remember being in the kitchen eating the chocolate chips out of the batter. I remember eating them like right out of the freezer with my sister at midnight. I remember the pat of the, pat of the pan and the flour going across it. That's what I remember. Little did I know that outside of my home, my parents were on the Phil Donahue show. My parents were collaborating with Ben & Jerry's to make an ice cream, a Rachel's Brownies ice cream. And they actually were invited to have lunch with President Ronald Reagan. And what's cool about that is that my mom was pregnant with me at the time, so I like to say that a long time ago, I shared a roast beef sandwich with the president. So I truly grew up with food in my blood. Food is in my genes, it's a piece of who I am. But as for me, what did I want to do my whole life? I wanted to be an actress. Big surprise. So I wanted to perform and inspire people and make them laugh and touch their lives, and I always thought that I was going to have to do that through being an actress. And where's the center of the acting world? Hollywood. So I always felt, I longed after Hollywood my whole life. And I always pick up and head for the hills. And one night, I literally just did. And like I said, I had no money, I had no plan, I had no luggage, but what I did have was this. So this is my actual ticket from that little adventure of that night. My lucky number is 25. So you can imagine that at 19 years old, when I walked inside the airport, up to the Southwest counter, and I said, I'll have a one-way ticket to California, and the woman scribbled my gate number onto my ticket, and it was my lucky number. At 19, you can think, obviously my first thought when I turn away and I look at it, oh my God, this is the best decision I've ever made. This is obviously fate. No, definitely not. So the story begins here with a very clueless, but a very passionate teenager. And, I was always a very passionate kid too. So I'd come down the stairs, and I'd have a pair of underpants on my head. I'd have on 6 different outfits. I would grab any prop I could find, a maraca, a guitar, the cat, whatever I could find. I'd stand on our fireplace, which was kind of like a stage, and I would gather my parents and my sister, and I would put on a little show. And I just love to entertain, I love to make them laugh. Now, while most parents would have cried at this, when I came down the stairs wearing this, my parents would applaud. So I will say, though, that unfortunately, in a traditional school setting, this won't get you very far. And I obviously went here to Ravenscroft, and I had a tough time fitting in here. It's a very academically driven school, and I had a hard time with that. I didn't excel. I felt like all my other friends around me were trying really hard and doing really well, and it never really clicked for me. And I would go home and I would talk to my parents, and they would encourage me, and my mom would tell me I was like the greatest thing in the world. And I would say, you have to say that. You're my mom. The teachers don't feel that way. And it took me a long time to kind of find my place here. And, like I said, it didn't mean that I didn't have a place here. It took a while for it to click for me. So, like I said, I always just thought I'd pick up and head for the hills. So, as the famous Miley Cyrus once said, I hopped off the plane at LAX. And I remember walking into the airport, and the minute that I stepped into the airport, reality set in. And I looked around and thought, oh my God, what have I just done? This is crazy. And, I called my parents, and we talked it through, and, they always knew I was just longing to get to California. So as crazy as it was, they weren't that surprised at what I had done. And, even though I wasn't very academically driven, I always wanted to finish school. That was important to me. I was only 19 at the time. And I always knew that college was important to me. I think, honestly, Ravenscroft is what instilled that in me. I wanted to finish, I wanted to go all the way through, and then kind of begin my life from there. So, I bought a one-way ticket right back to RDU, and I was home in 7 hours. And it worked well that I wanted to finish school because the next day happened to be my Peace College orientation. I was very tired that day. So, when I was here at Ravenscroft, like I said, I didn't do well, and a lot of classes I didn't do well in were, math and biology, and classes where there's one answer. If a teacher would say, Fanny, what's 4 times 4? And I would say, well, I think the answer is 92, because that's how I feel. That's not okay. There's one answer. So I took a creative writing class for the very first time at Ravenscroft with a teacher who I believe is no longer here. His name was Mr. McGill. And he was the first teacher to really ever say to me, be as wildly creative as you want. And there's no right answer here. And it was the first year at Ravenscroft that I got an A. So, like Scott said, I went here from preschool to senior year. I went here for 14 years. And it wasn't until my junior year that I actually got an A here. And it clicked for me. So when I got to Peace College, I thought, okay, what can I do here? How can I make my mark here? So I saw that they had a creative writing class. And I took that class. And then I took another creative writing class. And then another one, and another one, and another one. And I took every single one that I possibly could. And I found that I actually excelled at it. And I went from being a D student my whole life to a Dean's List student. They even let me be a graduation marshal. But don't worry, I didn't lose my fanniness. Totally acceptable thing to do at graduation. So I found myself through writing. And I found that I was passionate about it, that I was good at it, that I excelled at it, and that I loved to do it. And I found that writing became my first circle. So I graduated from Peace, I saved a little money, and then I turned 25, my lucky number. And I moved to Hollywood for real. And, but yeah, that's really there. And so what's funny is I found that 25 actually was a sign the entire time. 25 was not the universe telling me, here's your lucky number scribbled across this crazy spontaneous decision you just made. This was a good idea. It was the universe telling me, you need to wait until you're 25 years old discovering yourself and figuring yourself out, you're not going to be able to do it before then. So I got to LA, and surprisingly, it didn't click. And it's funny because my dad used to always say to me, what's your backup plan if acting doesn't work? And I was like, I don't need a backup plan. Acting is what it's going to be. And I got there, and I found that something about it wasn't falling into place. And, I was taking these acting classes, and my head wasn't in it. I was trying to go on auditions, and something about it just it didn't feel aligned. And I found that the improv classes I was taking, I actually started to bring those into the kitchen, because I had moved out to California not knowing anybody. And so I really found that the way that I connected myself back home was by cooking, because I would taste something or smell something, and it would bring me right back home. And so I found that I was starting to bring improv actually into the kitchen. And while most women my age would be wandering around shopping or looking at shoes, I would be at Whole Foods like looking at the kumquats for hours, like, what can I do with this? So I found that, the food improv in the kitchen is kind of what did it for me. And as it turns out, the ingredients became the friends that I didn't have there, and the faces on the other side of the TV, Rachel, Bobby, Jada, Ina, they became like my family. So I started a blog when I was out there. It was called Rollywood to Hollywood, and it was all about, continuing my writing and taking my friends and family along for the journey. And I decided I want to start writing about food, and I want to start posting some recipes. So I started a tab that I called Fanfare. And Fanfare is the perfect combination of Fanny and food. And I found that food is what sparked my life. And it had been there kind of bubbling under the surface the whole time. But it wasn't until I started to be so passionate about it and find that I was excelling at it, that I was good at it, and I loved to do it, that I realized that this entire time, food had actually been my second circle all along. So I repacked all of my stuff and I head for home because I thought, I don't really have much of a use for California anymore. I'd like to be a little closer to home. So I grew up my whole life in Raleigh, as I'm sure many of you did. And those of you know, as soon as it gets warm here and we're done with this ridiculous weather, we all head for Wrightsville Beach. So my family was exactly the same. Every summer, we would pick up and go to Wrightsville Beach for 2 weeks. In case you can't tell, I was incredibly cool at this age. So I thought that downtown Wilmington seemed like a good place for me. It was just far enough away where I could be independent and be on my own and do my own thing, but just close enough where I could still come home and have Thanksgiving dinner with my parents. So it was sort of the perfect location for me in Wilmington, and I thought, I got there and I thought, okay, I'm going to do the food thing and I want to do it my way. I don't want to open a restaurant. How can I be my own boss and do what I love to do and cook my recipes? Wait, I'll be a caterer. And then I realized, wait, I don't have any money. So I decided that I needed to kind of have a foot in both worlds. I needed a steady paycheck, and I needed to, have that salary that was coming in I could depend on. And also I could try to do the food thing on the side. But I found that I couldn't focus on anything else but food. So I got a job as a marketing associate for a group of financial advisors. And I was trying so hard to just, be in the moment when I was there. But all I wanted to do was write about food and write recipes and think about food. So I was the note taker. And I'd be in the meetings and my boss would be saying, all right, Fanny, you got the notes? Yeah, no problem. So we'd be writing down what I was hearing, financial advising plan, wealth management, retirement fund. And I'd go back to my desk and I'd look down at my notes to see what I had written. Spiced fish tacos, Cajun aioli. It was like my hands were just writing recipes. I literally just couldn't control it. And my boss saw that all over my face. And he was a great guy. He very compassionately called me into his office. I'll never forget this line. He said, Fanny, I feel like we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And it's funny because I had kind of felt that in so many things my whole life. It didn't click. And it didn't matter that it didn't click. I knew that eventually it was going to fall into place. But it was one more spot where it just didn't click for me. And he said, as somebody who works their passion every day, I'm passionate about financial advising, I know that you're passionate about food. And I think that that's what you should be out there pursuing. You shouldn't be in here. And so I knew it was a scary decision to just let go of all the desk jobs that I wasn't a fan of and move forward, open this catering company with no money and just see how it worked out. It was a scary thought, but I looked at him and I said, Jason, you're right. I don't belong here. And the funny thing is, as I'm walking out of his office that day, just as the door is closing behind him, he sticks his head out and he says, hey, Fanny, call us when you're the next Rachel Ray. So I'm driving home that day, and I'm like in tears. I call my dad, and what's funny is I remember as I'm driving home, he picks up the phone, and he's like, what's wrong? And as I'm on my way home, I see that they're building a Starbucks on the corner of Oleander and Independence in Wilmington. And I say, they're building a Starbucks. I would have been on my way to work, but I just got fired today. And he's like, okay, calm down. And, we talked through it, and he said, I know you're not going to be able to see this now, but one day you're going to look back and you're going to see that this is the best thing that ever happened to you. So I went home that day, and I opened Fanfare Catering. I also made a really good tuna melt that day. See, everything turns out all right. So I decided to open Fanfare Catering, and what's awesome is because I was so passionate about it, and because I was enjoying what I was doing, even though it was a very scary step, how many people quit their jobs and just start doing what they love, the catering actually did well. And I got lunches and dinners, and I even got a couple of film caterings, which was awesome because I always knew that I would end up in the movies. I just didn't know I'd be the one serving them lasagna. So the catering was going quite well for me, and I was enjoying what I was doing. And then came November 21st, 2013. So, my 87-year-old grandmother sends text messages. No big deal. So she sent me a text message about the Rachel Ray Great American Cookbook Competition. And I looked up all the rules for it, and everything just fit perfectly into place for me. You had to submit an essay. I love to write. You had to submit a video. I love to be on camera. You had to submit a concept. And I thought, okay, I didn't even have to rack my brain about it. I mean, for me, it was like, all right, I don't make vegetarian food or Italian food or Mexican cuisine. What is it about food? It's food memories, it's food moments, and it's childhood. It always connected me back to these sort of food moments in my childhood. And so I came up with this concept, and I called it Taste Like Childhood. And it was all about telling a story about a food moment that I would have in life, something that's kind of stuck with me. I would tell the story, and then I would find my own way to twist the recipe and put it on the plate in a new way. And there were 1,000 contestants that entered this competition. And I got a call in January that I made the top 20. And then I got a call a month later that I made the top 10. And I was told in that phone call, okay, Fanny, if you make the top 5, and the top 5 was like it, like you're going to New York, you're going to be on TV, like that's it, that's the biggest deal. I was told, if you make the top 5, you'll get a phone call from us on April 1st. April Fool's Day. Are you kidding me? So March 31st, I don't sleep at all. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh my God, the next day could be the day that changes my life, and so I'm just, total spaz. And I wake up on April 1st, and I'm just thinking, all right, I need to just relax and get my mind off the stuff. So I decided to go out on the Riverwalk. I live downtown, and the Riverwalk is a very peaceful place, so I think I'm gonna go for a run and just get my mind off of things. So I'm running, I'm out there for like maybe a minute or so, and all of a sudden, the music in my headphones stops. And I look down at my phone, Rachel Ray Show. So I pull the headphone cord out, I put it up to my ear, I don't even say hello. I scream into the phone, this better not be the worst April Fool's joke that's ever been played on me. And from the other line comes the voice of Rachel Ray. Note to self, don't yell at celebrities. So Rachel says, we loved your video, we thought you knocked it out of the ballpark, we like your concept, but there's also 4 other people who have excellent concepts, and we would like to invite you to come to New York City to compete on our show. Could you make a little time for us? And I'm like, no, I'm busy. So a couple of weeks later, I was standing on the stage at the Rachel Ray Show. And I had the most fun I've ever had during this competition. And I think the reason was because it was a piece of everything that I love to do. So I was getting to share my recipes, so the food was there. I was getting to share my stories, which was kind of like the writing piece. I was getting to be in front of all these people. And I don't know if any of you guys watched Shark Tank, but one of our judges was Lori from Shark Tank Blonde. And we had to pitch our dish and ourselves and our concept to Lori Grenier from Shark Tank. And as terrifying as it would have been, it was the only opportunity I had to stand in Rachel's kitchen, make my dish, tell my story by myself. It was kind of like having my own cooking show for the first time. And I was so stoked with my performance. I was so excited that when I went and hand-delivered my crab cake sliders to Lori Grenier, I looked down, I didn't even care that I had accidentally made them upside down. It was the most fun that I think I've ever had. So I made it to the top 4, to the top 3, and then finally came the finale. Now, people will tell you that your life flashes before your eyes the moment you're about to die. But in my experience, your life flashes before your eyes the moment that Rachel Ray is holding a cloak over a giant photo of your face. So I remember, just as Rachel said, the lights Rachel says, and the winner is, and puts her hand on the corner of the curtain. I remember I picked a spot on the studio wall, and I just stared at it. And I started to think to myself, is this it? What if this isn't it? Everything in my life is kind of aligned to bring me here, and here I am standing on the stage. What am I going to do if this isn't it? Because I know that I can't go backwards. And in that moment, I decided to take a deep breath, and I looked around at the audience, my whole family, my boyfriend, they were all sitting in the front row. And I realized that it didn't matter what was behind the curtain, because this was it. It didn't matter. I thought my entire life I was going to have to be an actress, to be able to do what I loved, to be able to perform and be in front of people. But I realized in that moment right there that I was standing at the intersection of my three circles. I was getting to do every single thing that I wanted to do. And I was even getting to perform. I looked around at the audience and I looked at my family and all of the people's faces who were inspired, and I realized the entire time I thought that I was going to have to play the part of somebody else. When it turns out that all I had to do was just be myself. And that was actually my third circle all along. And what's cool is every single day now I get to live at the intersection of my three circles. So I'm writing this cookbook that I can't wait for everybody to read. I'm getting to be as wildly creative in the kitchen as I want. And I happen to be getting to speak in front of big groups of people, hopefully making you guys laugh a little bit, leaving you with a spark of creativity and touching your life. And it's funny, because sometimes a story starts out with a clueless teenager thinking that she has all the answers in the world, but it actually takes life bringing you full circle to really get it. So, that's it guys. Thank you.
Have a great day.